Welcome to Insight FS Game Bird program for this year. My name is Steve Hellenbrand. I'm the Feed Marketing Manager for Insight FS. We have three wonderful presentations today. The first presentation will be by Dr. Al Hollister. We'll be talking about game bird health and nutrition. The second presentation will be by Kevin Mayringer, who is Insight FS's Credit and Agri-Finance Manager, talking about flexible credit options as well as finance options. And then finally, I will be talking about Insight FS services and risk management. Without any more delay, here's Dr. Al Hollister from Dawes Nutrition.
Hello and welcome. Thank you for listening. For those that don't know me, I'm a poultry nutritionist at Dawes Laboratories. I've been doing pheasant nutrition for 45 plus years. So I think I'm in a position to probably give you some valuable pointers. Dawes is a nutrition company that's been in business since 1926, and we provide all kinds of nutrition. We sell vitamin mineral premixes for feed, and I provide formulation along with those. We also have all kinds of nutrition products, like you might have heard of GrowGel Plus and similar products for poultry as well as other kinds of livestock. Okay. Next. So you might wonder why it takes all this feed type stuff to replace what birds do in the wild. Crickets and grasshoppers and worms and stuff have a lot of nutrition in them, but you don't want to spend all your time catching those critters to make feed. So we jump through a lot of hoops to provide feed that will do just that. Next slide. So this is what I'm going to talk about, some of this stuff. We want to stick with quality ingredients. We want to use fixed formulas with no substitution, because birds notice a difference in the feed from one batch to the next. So the more you can do about keeping it consistent, the better your performance will be. We want to stick with quality additives, hatchling supplements, like I mentioned, GrowGel Plus, mold inhibitors to keep from having problems with mold, mycotoxin binders, probiotics, enzymes, a quality vitamin trace mineral premix, and coccidiostats when needed. I also like animal protein, especially in the starters, just because the game birds are not vegetarians. They're omnivores. They got to have a little bit of animal protein. And I also avoid DDGs. Okay, suggestions for evaluating a feed supplier. Next slide. The things I recommend that you do if somebody approaches you trying to sell you feed is, first off, ask for a tag copy of the formula. That'll tell you a lot about what they put in the feed. For consistency between batches, it should be a fixed formula with no least costing from one batch to the next. Some feed companies are tempted to throw in alternate ingredients when they're lower priced, but there again, like I mentioned before, that just gives you more variation and poorer performance. Quality ingredients that we want to look for things like the real names of the ingredients: corn, soybean meal, wheat and heads, meat and bone, or fish. Things like that will tell you if they're not trying to hide anything. Processed grain products can be suspicious. They can be helpful. Sometimes we do that on purpose so that somebody can't copy the formula, but generally it's just a cover-up for those alternate ingredients in there. And definitely stay away from distilled dried grains, because in the processing steps of making distillers, they concentrate any mycotoxins that might be present And so it's safer. You can get good quality distillers dried grains, but it's safer and good insurance just to avoid them, especially in starter feeds. Quality vitamin trace mineral premixes like Dawes Gamebird Breeder premix. It is the only premix, vitamin trace mineral premix, that's designed specifically for game birds. There isn't anybody else that makes a product like that. So it's a good idea to stick with that if you can. Sorry, I got somebody calling me already wanting more premixes probably. Anyway, if the Dawes Gamebird Breeder premix isn't going to be listed on the tag, so you just have to ask the producer if that's what they're using. Because we don't want to, a lot of times they'll be tempted to use a general poultry premix that's designed originally for chickens, and that just isn't good enough for game birds. They're much more specific. And so that's why I designed this Gamebird Breeder premix just for game birds. And like it says here, a good quality turkey breeder premix is a good alternative if you happen to be in one of those cases where they don't have ready access to the Dawes Gamebird Breeder. Okay. Another quality additive. Ask them if they've included Dawes Poultry Probiotic. It's without question the best poultry probiotic available. And it has 10 different species of bacteria in there, so that you get both competitive exclusion and performance differences. Next. Other valuable additives that you might need: mold inhibitors, because the feed can get moldy in storage, or even ingredients can have a little bit of mold on them when you first get them. So it's good to see if they're including a mold inhibitor in the feed. And these common products like Mycocorb and Moldtabs are names that you might see. Also, mycotoxin binders. Biofix Select is one of the better products. And as I said, might have said before, pheasants in particular are among the most sensitive to mycotoxins. So you definitely want to have a mycotoxin binder in your feed. You might also notice some copper sulfate. It's a gut conditioner, and xylanase or beta-glucanase enzymes, which are also helpful, especially in the starters, to eliminate problems like what's commonly called pasty butt, where they're not digesting the feed and it's messing up their feathers in the rear. Okay. And finally, I always ask people to send samples of feed off to a lab to confirm that the feed is being mixed as formulated. You can call for more information on this, but I commonly check for protein, fat, fiber, calcium, phosphorus, sodium, and another mineral. And with those things, I can check and tell you if the feed was made as it was formulated. Next. So we go to the different kinds of game birds. Not many people have meat birds, but they do take a different type of diet than you would have for your flight birds. They're totally different birds. You want them to be calm. Think turkeys. You want them to be calm so they grow well, get good feed conversion, a lot of muscles and some fat. and you don't care about feather quality because they're gonna lose those feathers when they're processed anyway. So they're a high energy, high density diet, as compared with, on the next slide, flight birds. These are your elite athletes. They've got to be mean and lean, or lean and mean, because you want them to be good flyers, be very active. You also want the best possible feather quality, so they look good, and they fly good. Diets, as compared with the diets that we mentioned for the meat birds, they need to be low energy, low nutrient density to reduce feather picking, and they also will give them the best performance. You've got to keep them lean and mean, or they're not going to be good flyers. They'll just be too fat to fly well. Next. So everybody's probably seen the traditional types of diets: 28% starter, 28% protein. A grower that's intermediate and stay in between there, 23 or 24, or maybe a 20. A flyer after that, and then a maintenance if you happen end up keeping them longer than that. And then finally, if you have breeders, 18% or 20% breeder. Next. This is the part that makes DAWS ideal for just about anybody in the industry. You have meat birds with a lot of choices for the meat, for the different stages of growth in the breeders. Flight birds in particular, you can have 28% starter, 20 grower, 18 flight, so on, or you can have customized ones for your particular situation. 20 or an inside breeders, outside breeders, and you have, or if you have small birds like the Kansas strains, you might want to have a higher protein breeder. And finally, for the other species, chukar, huns, quails, also we offer specialized diets just for them, with or without antibiotics, coccidiostats, and wormers. These next additives are ones that I alluded to before. We have mold inhibitors, mycotoxin binders. Sometimes you might need a pellet binder. Probiotics, like I mentioned, the DAWS DPP, and enzymes in the starter and probably the breeder diets. And then finally, you may need a coccidiostat and wormers, that all of those things that might be custom made for your particular situation. Next. Why we need them? This is an example of some really bad quality corn, but mold itself usually isn't damaging for the birds. The molds just eat the nutrition, and you lose nutrition from the corn. But the mycotoxins that they can produce can be a problem. So we got to make sure that they're a propionic based product. Look on the tag for things like propionic acid, acetic acid, sorbic, benzoic. Those are all mold inhibiting organic acids that you'll see in a mold inhibitor. That's how you identify it on the feed tag. Next. Mycotoxin binders that I mentioned. Turkey poults, ducklings, and pheasant chicks are the top three as far as sensitivity to mycotoxins. So depending on the corn quality in any particular year, you might, I would say, probably just use a mycotoxin binder all the time, because you can't tell what conditions the corn was raised under, and also someone might have not done a very good job of storing the corn after they harvested it. So molds can grow in storage in the crude corn before it's processed, or it can grow in the feed after, when you have it in storage, if a little bit of moisture happens to get in it. For example, if you got steel bins and it's the spring or the fall and the temperatures change from high temperatures to low temperatures, you're going to get condensation. So you can get moisture in there that grow mold, and the molds can develop mycotoxins. Notice here I mentioned aflatoxins can cause damage in the parts per billion range. Parts per billion is a really small amount. Other mycotoxins that are more common are in the parts per million. But if you actually calculate it out, one pound of corn has around 1,000 to 1,300 kernels, and a truckload has 52 million. So that means you just need a few kernels of very solid mycotoxins to be dangerous to pheasants. Mycotoxin binders ingredients that you would look for on the tag would include clay, yeast, charcoal, and sometimes enzymes. So they're good insurance to protect the birds. The damage that mycotoxins usually cause, they can cause gut damage that interfere with absorption, and they can cause, almost all of them cause damage to the liver and kidneys. And so if you've got interference with the liver and kidneys, you're going to start seeing problems like wing walkers. They're chicks that they have weak legs and they try to walk by using their wings. And that's usually caused by a vitamin D deficiency, and vitamin D is processed in the liver and kidneys. So that's where you end up with a connection there, that they get weak legs and weak bones because they're not processing vitamin D correctly because of the mycotoxins, which is all related there. Next. Finally, pellet binders. A lot of times you don't need pellet binders in game bird feed because there's usually ingredients like wheat mids in there that help you produce good pellets, but sometimes they're necessary. So some people are able to do a good job of raising birds with just mash feed. So pellet feed will give you a little better performance and less waste, better flowability. So there are some definite advantages to using pellet binders. Next. And of course, probiotics that I mentioned before. Some people call them direct-fed microbials. They're all live bacteria and sometimes yeast that provide the normal gut flora that needs to be in there and inhibiting pathogens. You might also sometimes see people talk about prebiotics like yeast products, not live yeast, processed yeast, which just provide better growth conditions for the probiotic. Next. And finally, enzymes. Some ingredients like soybeans have non-starch polysaccharides in them that aren't very digestible to real young birds. And other ingredients have similar products in there. So sometimes the enzymes are real beneficial as far as getting good performance out of your starter diets in particular. And oftentimes we don't need them in the grower diets because we don't need better digestion there. We need to keep them lean. So look for xylanase or other words like that, beta glucanase in the on the feed tag. That will tell you if the enzymes are in there. Next. Finally, coccidiostats. Regrettably, cocci and worms are two things that probably have been in poultry forever, and they will probably end up being in them forever. They're just real hard to control. So you usually have to have a coccidiostat and a wormer at some period if you've got birds for a long period of time. So in pheasants, the only coccidiostats that's technically approved as Improlim. In partridge, like Chucker, Avatec, and Rofinate are the only ones that are approved. And in quail, it's Coban and Biocox. Now, a lot of times there are problems with those after you use them for a long time because the organisms develop resistance. So we need to do what's called a shuttle program. Dr. McDougall at Georgia, University of Georgia, did some research on that and found that sometimes the best performance is achieved by switching out different coccidiostats for the one that's commonly approved. Regrettably, we have to get a veterinary script to do that if you're going to use one that isn't already approved for that particular bird. And finally, for worms, Safeguard or fenbendazole is by far the best wormer that you can use. It's now available in a water dispersed version called Aquasol. So that's how we control the worms. And they seem to control all different kinds of worms. And that about ties it up. Next. I probably was talking too fast and you may have missed something there, but don't be afraid to call me or contact me if you have other questions. In general, my summarizing statement would be the quality always pays off because you can buy cheap feed, but you'll pay for it in lack of performance of the birds. So it's worth paying a little bit more if needed to have those other ingredients in there, not just your basic corn and soybean meal. And if that, I'll turn it back over to Steve.
Next, we will have Kevin, FS's Agri-Finance Manager. We'll be talking a little bit about our credit programs and finance options. So Kevin, take it away.
Hello, as Steve mentioned, my name is Kevin Maringer, and I'm the Credit and Agri-Finance Manager here at Insight FS. I'd like to take a few minutes to review our credit and financing options to our feed clients. First is our open account. This acts similarly to a regular credit card or any other credit program. Our terms are net 30. Due on the 25th of the month after invoicing. So no finance charge is incurred unless payment is made after the 25th of the due date on the statement. So an example of this would be if you receive your feed on January 6th, that statement will be generated and cut and mailed on February 1st. No payment is due until February 25th, with no finance charge incurred until we actually give you a slight grace period. No finance charge would be incurred actually until March 1st. So if you are strategic about how you plan your deliveries, you can get quite a lengthy period of time without having to pay any sort of finance charge if that is of need for you. Somewhere in the 55 to 60 days worth of 0% can be very helpful depending on your individual cash flow. To open our open account, we do need an application completed. That can be found on insightfs.com. If you go to the website and you click on credit application, actually, or both applications are right on our homepage, or via this QR code. You can fill out, it is a DocuSign application. It will ask you some very basic questions. The credit application goes through a little bit more of your personal stuff. The commercial application is going to ask for a little bit more of the business type questions. The commercial application does come along with a tax exempt form. So if you are tax exempt, that form is embedded. If you have questions on should you fill out the commercial or should you fill out the consumer app, I would err on the caution of just fill out the commercial app, because everything that's in there is also included on the consumer, but not everything on the consumer is included in the commercial. Credit decisions typically take 24 to 48 hours from when we receive all the documents that we need to process that application. So some of those documents that we're going to need are a driver's license for the consumer app, and we may request a bank reference. We do pull credit, and if needed, we may actually send in a bank reference just as supporting documentation for our credit decision. On the commercial app side of things, it gets a little bit more documentation just because we do need to know some of the entity core docs, making sure that who is signing the document is able to sign the document. And by document, I mean the application, which also is our credit agreement. So we just want to make sure that whoever is signing that is able to sign it. Depending on how much credit you are requesting, we may ask for some financial statements. Really only a balance sheet is ever anything we would collect. And we do ask for all the business officers or partners. If there's a long list, we can discuss that in general, but typically we do require the names of all owners. Once again, we may request a bank or credit reference, and we may require a personal guarantee depending on the various metrics that we're using to score your application. So that's our open program. Something new this year is FS AgriFinance, which is available for our feed clients. This is something in the past that has not been available, but due to our switching vendors with our AgriFinance partner, they are okay with us using AgriFinance for feed. So that's kind of exciting, and we're looking forward to growing our AgriFinance program with some new feed customers. This would be part of our discretionary input loan program. It's not really a separate AgriFinance loan. It's just a different section of that AgriFinance loan. All AgriFinance loans are drawdown line of credit, so they're not revolving, which means that once you borrow $1, you can't pay that $1 back and reborrow it. So if you have a $100,000 credit line and you borrow $50,000, you can't borrow $70,000. You can only borrow the remaining $50,000. The nice part about AgriFinance as well is you only pay interest on your active balance. So if you were to borrow $50,000 and pay that off and let it sit at zero for a time, during that zero time, it is not incurring any sort of interest or finance charges. The rate on AgriFinance is variable. It's currently the FS index plus an add-on, and the FS index is prime plus a half. So if you are in our top tier, you're currently at 9%, and our secondary tier, you would be at 9.75%. As prime rate goes down, which it's projected to in the future, there's no guarantee of that, but your rate will come down along with prime because it's always going to be the FS index plus that add-on, which FS index is tied to prime. The other feature of this is there's no required payment until maturity. And so for a 2025 input line, maturity is going to be March 15th of 2026, and that is a balloon payment. And you cannot have more than one loan per year. So if you were looking at this type of a product, you'd want to structure it in such a way that you're timing it with your feed needs. So for pheasants, if you were to have two batches of birds, and you knew that each batch was going to need about $25,000 worth of feed, you would ask for a credit line of $50,000. You could then draw 25 for your initial batch. When you sell that batch, you pay off our 25, and when you're ready to buy more feed, you can either borrow that second 25, or if you wanted to, you could have just borrowed the initial 25 and then used your cash to pay the feed on the next batch as well. You could certainly do it that way. But you cannot have more than one loan per year. So if you just needed 25 and you borrowed the 25, you can't set up a loan 6 months later. FS AgriFinance, this once again is very easy to complete. It's a lot less cumbersome than any sort of other financing that might be out there. We just require our Fast App credit application, a signed resolution to borrow. That's kind of it for documentation other than a current balance sheet as well. We do require a minimum FICO score of 670 and a minimum net worth of 1 to 1. And then your blanket lien UCC filing, which we'll file on your business. But that's really it for the AgriFinance requirements. So we have 3 AgriFinance specialists, one in the Northern Territory in blue, which is Stacy Hoffman. Brianna Hurley is our Eastern Region AgriFinance specialist, and then Kayla Sweden is our Western Region AgriFinance specialist. And you can see, depending on where you're located, our nearest hub and who that might be. And our emails are down below, where if you have any general questions, you can easily reach out to us, and we'd be happy to give you whatever information you're looking for or get you started if you're interested in the AgriFinance program. So that is all I have for you on our financing and credit opportunities. So I'm going to pass it back to Steve.
Thank you, Kevin, for that outstanding report on our flexible credit options in finance. So now I want to talk a little bit about our Wisconsin Game Bird Support Team on the next slide here. As you can see, here's a map, and Kevin showed a map as well as where our credit services, but we have many locations throughout Wisconsin, along with species specialists to help you. If you do not know where your nearest location is, down below, you can contact us through insightfs.com, and that will show your nearest location. And either one of our species specialists, along with possibly one of our Dawes nutritionists, will be out to support you in anything that you may need. So let's next look at manufacturing. We have a vast number of manufacturing plants that can service you in many different ways. Starting with our Brandon plant at the top there. This is a plant that not only manufactures bulk, bags, and totes, but also has the ability to provide bulk and route delivery, not only for the Brandon area, but also out of Little Chute and the Mawson plants for central and southern Wisconsin. Our second plant is in the north. Our Rosellville plant as well can produce bulk, bag, and totes, and can provide route delivery and bulk delivery, not only out of Rosellville, but again, out of Little Chute, Mawson for the northern Wisconsin area. So 2 great plants that offer great delivery options for everyone. Our Mawson plant manufacturing makes bulk and totes. It has a dedicated tote line, which is a growing part of our industry, and has the capability to make mini pellets, which is very important to a number of you. The Little Chute plant manufactures bags and bulk and some totes, has the capability to make crumbles and short pellets for other people that have this special need. So many different wonderful options to help you. For delivery options, as you can see, we have quad trucks and semis, so different types of trucks that can deliver to your farm based on your need. As well as you can see there, we have nice route delivery trucks that can deliver bags or totes to your farm. On the bottom right is unique. This is a tote bin that for people that want to take totes and have it near where they need to feed their animals, these can be either purchased or leased from us for a small fee. So next, let's talk about Insight FS contracting program or risk management program for 2025. We have some special contract programs that are unique to Insight FS. And so let's go over our contract program. Fixed program, very normal that we see in the industry. It's a firm price for the duration of a contract period. What's unique to Insight FS is our cap premium program. This can be assessed on product types from completes to concentrates. It allows the customer to ability to receive the market downs for the duration of the contract. How important would that have been this past year, where feed prices really dropped this past year? You would have the ability to receive them downs in the market. This can be on contracts that we offer anywhere from 6 to 12 months. Some of the contract rules that we have is that you must have at least 6 tons of any particular type of contract family, which is a very small amount. You must ship 100%, or you can incur a market loss in unshipped volume. And Insight reserves the right to amend any offer at any time during a contract offering period. So let's take a look at other things in contracting. Let's take a look at an example of a cap contract, how a cap contract works differently than a fixed contract. Let's say the feed has a price of $319 is a fixed contract price. If we want to use a cap premium, the small fee for the cap, let's say, for example, in this example is $6, and that's added to the fixed price. So the max you would ever pay is $325. So if you look at week 1, the price is $319. Our cap premium is $6, so you pay $325. Let's say week 2, the price drops down to $300. Well, we would add the $6 to that. So then you would only pay $306. So you had a net savings of $19 on that feed. Week 3, the price jumps up to $335. You would only pay that max price of $325 that was set on the contract. Week 4, it jumps again to $350. Again, you only pay the $325. In essence, if a spot price is less than the fixed portion, we just add the cap premium, and that's your price. If the spot price is higher than your fixed contract, well, you only pay that max price of $325. This is a wonderful program, gives you excellent options for a very small amount. So let's look at other options of a cap contract. When we're talking market loss, for whatever reason, for the most, we always try to make sure everybody takes 100% of their contract and make sure we don't over contract, because our contracts are unique in the sense that if you're getting towards the end of your contract and it hasn't been used up, you can extend a contract by 10%. But let's take a look. 100% of contracts should be shipped. All unshipped tons of these contracts period will be assessed a market loss if applicable. The market loss will be calculated off the weekly price list. Let's take an example. A customer has a max contract of 100 unshipped tons at the end of the ship period with a $6 cap premium, just like our example. What would the market loss be? Well, the customer would be billed a market loss of $600. And the way that was calculated was 100 ton of unshipped ton times the cap premium is $6. That's the unique thing of a cap premium. It's not any more or any less the market loss than what the cap premium is. So it limits your risk. Where a fixed contract, the customer contract was $319. At the end of September of 100 unshipped tons, The price was only $2.99. So the loss there was $20 a ton, which would net result in a $2,000 assessed for a market loss. And this last year could have been as much as $50 or $5,000. So shows the minimizing as well as a market loss. Next. So that shares a little bit about our contract program and the different options we have, and you can use either one or a combination of the two. For people that take advantage of our contracting program or purchase feed from us before the end of the year, we want to give a little bit of a gift of hooded sweatshirts. You can get up to 2 free hooded sweatshirts for every 10 ton. We will provide a free sweatshirt up to 2. So that is a special offer we have. Next. I hope you will give us a chance to serve you with our your game bird needs. This is my contact information there. I'm the feed marketing manager as well. You can go on Insight FS and look for your nearest location. If you have any questions, next slide, any questions at all, again, contact me or contact any of our species specialists along with our DAWS partner. We'll be more than happy to answer any of your questions. In the final slide, I want to thank you today for joining us. And I hope you enjoyed our program today, and hopefully we can service you. Thank you.